One quiet afternoon, Miss Thompson, the kind teacher, was walking along the beach. As she gazed out at the waves, something strange caught her eye. There in the water was a figure she couldn't believe. It was a mermaid. Her long, shimmering hair flowed with the waves, and her sparkling tail flicked through the water. Miss Thompson froze in shock. She had never imagined seeing such a thing, and for a moment she thought her eyes were tricking her. But the mermaid was real, and she was right there in front of her. Miss Thompson's heart raced. What was this secret? Why had she never heard of it before? After the strange sighting, Miss Thompson couldn't stop thinking about the mermaid. She had to know more. What was this creature? Where did she come from? Why had no one ever told her about mermaids before? Miss Thompson promised herself that she would uncover the truth. She couldn't let the mystery slip away. Little did she know, her curiosity would lead her on an adventure filled with surprises, danger, and secrets no one was meant to know. The mermaid's secret was deeper than she ever could have imagined. Determined to uncover the truth, Miss Thompson began her research. She spent hours at the library, flipping through old books about ancient legends and mysterious sea creatures. She read stories of mermaids from all around the world, beautiful creatures with tails like fish and voices that could charm sailors. But none of the books mentioned the secret she had seen. Miss Thompson grew more excited and frustrated. There had to be more to this mystery than just tales. She needed real answers, and she was determined to find them. One day, Miss Thompson met a man named Mr. Grayson. He was a fisherman, and he didn't believe in mermaids at all. "There's no such thing," he said with a laugh. "It's just stories people tell to make things more exciting." Miss Thompson didn't listen. She had seen the mermaid herself. Mr. Grayson's words didn't stop her. They only made her more determined. "I know what I saw, and I'll find out more," she promised herself. A few days later, Miss Thompson visited Mrs. Avery, the oldest woman in town. She had lived there for many years and knew all the old stories. "Do you know anything about mermaids?" Miss Thompson asked, her voice trembling with excitement. Mrs. Avery smiled softly and said, "Mermaids have been in these waters for centuries, but their secrets are hidden, dear. If you seek the truth, be careful." She handed Miss Thompson an old map. "This might help you," she whispered. "But remember, some mysteries are best left alone." Miss Thompson studied the map closely. It had strange markings and symbols she didn't understand. But one thing was clear. There was something hidden deep in the forest near the shore. It seemed like the mermaid's secret was tied to this place. Miss Thompson's heart raced. She knew she had to go there, but she also felt a chill run down her spine. What was guarding the secret? And why had Mrs. Avery warned her to be careful? As Miss Thompson followed the map through the woods, she couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching her. Every time she turned a corner, she saw shadows moving behind trees, but when she looked, no one was there. Her footsteps quickened. Who was following her? Was someone trying to stop her from discovering the truth? Miss Thompson's curiosity grew, but so did her fear. What danger was out there waiting for her? The path grew darker as Miss Thompson ventured deeper into the forest. Finally, she arrived at a clearing where strange stones were arranged in a circle. They were old, covered in moss and markings she couldn't read. She knelt down to inspect them, feeling a strange energy in the air. Suddenly, the ground beneath her feet rumbled, and she heard a faint voice calling her name. "Miss Thompson," it whispered. She looked around, but no one was there. Her heart raced. Was it the mermaid calling to her? A soft, glowing light appeared in the distance, leading her further into the forest. Miss Thompson hesitated. Was it a trap? Or was it the answer she had been searching for? She stepped forward, her heart pounding in her chest. As she walked, the light grew brighter and clearer until she saw a figure standing in the shadows. It was a woman, but not like any woman Miss Thompson had ever seen before. Her hair was long and flowed like the ocean waves, and her eyes sparkled like stars. It was the mermaid. Miss Thompson's curiosity grew even more. She had finally found the mermaid. But why was she hiding in the forest? What did this all mean? The mermaid looked at her with a knowing smile, and then she spoke softly. "You've come to uncover the truth, but are you ready for what you will find?" Miss Thompson felt a shiver run down her spine. She didn't know what would happen next, but she knew one thing. This was only the beginning. The next step in her journey would change everything. The next morning, Miss Thompson couldn't stop thinking about the glowing mermaid. Her mind raced with questions. Why had the mermaid been hiding in the forest? What secret was she keeping? Miss Thompson felt more curious than ever. She needed answers, and she would stop at nothing to find them. "I'll figure this out," she whispered to herself. "I have to." The mystery was so much bigger than she had imagined. But where could she begin? Miss Thompson started by looking through all the old books at the town library. She found stories of mermaids, but none of them seemed to explain what she had seen. Most of the stories were just myths, tales about sea creatures who sang to sailors, but nothing about the secret she had uncovered. She felt frustrated. "There has to be more," she muttered. What if no one else knew the truth? Was she the only one who had seen the mermaid? Could it be possible? Then Miss Thompson remembered the strange markings on the map Mrs. Avery had given her. She took it out again and studied it carefully. The map had strange symbols and a path that led deeper into the forest. She had to know what they meant. There must be something hidden there, something that would explain the mermaid's secret. Miss Thompson decided to go back to the forest. This time, she wasn't going to leave until she found out everything. As Miss Thompson walked through the woods, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching her. The trees swayed in the wind, and every little sound seemed to echo in the silence. She turned around but saw nothing. "It's just the wind," she told herself, trying to calm her racing heart. But she couldn't ignore the feeling. Someone or something was nearby. Could it be the mermaid watching her from a distance, or was it someone else? After a while, Miss Thompson arrived at the spot where the strange markings had been. But when she looked down, the ground was completely different. The markings were gone. The stones that had been there before were now covered by thick vines. Miss Thompson felt a sinking feeling in her stomach. Had she imagined it all? Was she chasing a ghost? The thought made her feel uneasy, but she wasn't ready to give up just yet. There had to be an answer, and she was going to find it. Suddenly, she heard a rustling noise from behind her. Miss Thompson quickly turned around. In the distance, she saw a shadowy figure moving through the trees. It wasn't the mermaid. The figure was taller, wearing a dark cloak. Miss Thompson's heart raced. Who was this person? Why were they out here in the woods? Slowly, the figure stepped forward, and Miss Thompson's eyes widened. It was someone she knew. It was Mr. Grayson, the fisherman who had told her mermaids didn't exist. "Miss Thompson," Mr. Grayson said, his voice low. "What are you doing here?" Miss Thompson took a deep breath. "I'm trying to find the truth about the mermaid," she replied boldly. Mr. Grayson shook his head. "You should stop before it's too late. Some secrets are meant to stay hidden," he warned, his face serious. "You don't understand the danger you're putting yourself in." Miss Thompson felt a chill run down her spine. Was he trying to warn her or scare her? Why did he care so much? Miss Thompson didn't back down. "I have to know. The mermaid is real, and I need to understand her secret," she said. Mr. Grayson sighed. "If you won't listen, then you'll learn the hard way," he muttered, turning and disappearing into the trees. Miss Thompson stood still for a moment, her mind racing. What was he talking about? What did he mean by the hard way? She couldn't let his warning stop her now. She had come too far. The mermaid's secret was out there, and Miss Thompson was going to find it. As Miss Thompson continued her search, she stumbled upon a small cave hidden by a thick blanket of ivy. The entrance was narrow, but it seemed important. Something about it felt right. She pushed the ivy aside and entered. Inside, the air was cool, and there was a faint sound of water trickling in the distance. As she ventured further, she spotted something strange. A small, glowing object lying on the ground. It was a smooth, round stone, covered in odd symbols. Miss Thompson picked it up carefully. Could this be part of the mermaid's secret? She wondered. Just as Miss Thompson examined the stone, she heard a soft whisper behind her. "You should go," a voice said, barely audible. Miss Thompson's heart skipped a beat. She turned quickly, but there was no one there. The whisper had come from the shadows. The stone in her hand began to glow brighter, and the air around her seemed to hum with energy. Miss Thompson felt a strange pull. What was this stone? What was it connected to? She didn't know, but one thing was certain. This mystery was far bigger than she had ever imagined. What would she discover next? The adventure was only just beginning. Miss Thompson held the glowing stone tightly in her hand. The moment she touched it, a strange warmth spread through her fingers. It felt like the stone was alive, like it had a secret to share. The cave around her seemed to hum with energy. The faint sound of water flowing echoed in the distance. Miss Thompson's heart raced. What was this stone? Was it a key to unlocking the mermaid's secret? She needed answers, and she was determined to find them. As she walked deeper into the cave, the light from the stone grew brighter. It lit up the walls, revealing more strange symbols carved into the rock. The symbols seemed to move, twisting and turning as if they were alive. Miss Thompson gasped. "This is no ordinary stone," she whispered to herself. She had read about magical stones in stories, but she never thought she would hold one in her hand. What could it mean? What was the stone trying to tell her? Miss Thompson kept walking, following the stone's glowing light. The deeper she went, the more the air seemed to change. It became colder, and the silence grew thicker. Suddenly, she stumbled over something hard on the cave floor. Looking down, she saw a small wooden chest. It was old and covered in dust, but it looked like it had been waiting for her. She crouched down and carefully opened the chest. Inside, there was a collection of strange objects, shiny shells, a broken necklace, and a folded piece of parchment. What could they mean? With shaking hands, Miss Thompson unfolded the parchment. The writing on it was strange, but some of the symbols looked like the ones she had seen in the cave. She traced her finger over them, trying to understand. The words seemed to glow faintly under her touch, and she felt a shiver run down her spine. She didn't know what the message said, but she knew it was important. Miss Thompson carefully folded the paper back and tucked it into her bag. She was one step closer to the truth. As she stood up, she heard the whisper again, this time much clearer. "Leave now." The voice was soft, but it sounded urgent. Miss Thompson froze. Where was the voice coming from? It didn't sound like anyone she knew. The cave was empty, but the air felt heavy, like something was watching her. Her pulse quickened. Who was speaking? Was it the mermaid? Or was it something else, something darker? She didn't know, but she knew she couldn't leave without finding out what was happening. Miss Thompson took a deep breath and moved toward the back of the cave. As she walked, the whispering grew louder, like the voices were all around her. "You're not ready," they seemed to say. "Turn back." But Miss Thompson wasn't about to give up. She had come this far, and she wasn't turning back now. "I have to know the truth," she whispered, feeling more determined than ever. The cave suddenly opened into a large chamber, its walls covered in beautiful, sparkling crystals. In the center of the room, there was a pedestal with something shining on top of it. Miss Thompson's heart skipped a beat. It was a beautiful, glowing pearl. It shimmered with colors she had never seen before. This was it. the mermaid's secret, but just as she reached out to touch it, the ground beneath her feet rumbled. The cave shook, and rocks started to fall from the ceiling. Something was happening. Miss Thompson stumbled backward, the pearl just out of reach. She heard a loud cracking sound, and the walls of the cave began to close in on her. Panic spread through her chest. She had to get out of there. The whispers were getting louder, almost deafening. "Leave," they hissed. "It's too late." Miss Thompson turned and ran, her heart racing. She could feel the cave moving, shifting round her, as if it didn't want her to leave. But she had no choice. She had to get out. As she raced toward the cave entrance, the stone in her hand started to glow even brighter. It felt like it was guiding her, showing her the way out. She reached the entrance, just as the walls collapsed behind her. She fell to the ground, panting, and looked back at the cave. The opening was sealed. The whispers stopped. The cave was silent again. Miss Thompson's heart was still racing, but she had escaped. She looked at the stone in her hand. What just happened? She wondered aloud. She had barely escaped with her life, but she had a feeling the worst was yet to come. Miss Thompson looked down at the stone, now glowing faintly again. She didn't understand what was happening, but one thing was clear. The mermaid's secret was far more dangerous than she could have imagined. Who was trying to stop her from discovering the truth? And why had the cave closed itself off? The questions burned in her mind. What was the next step? Where would this mystery lead her next? The answers were still out there, and Miss Thompson knew she couldn't stop until she found them. Miss Thompson sat on the edge of the forest, holding the glowing stone tightly in her hands. Her heart was still pounding from her escape in the cave. The voices had warned her to leave, but she couldn't shake the feeling that something important had been left behind. She stared at the stone, its glow now dim, but still alive with energy. What did it all mean? Why had the cave closed itself off? What was the mermaid hiding? The questions filled her mind, but she didn't have the answers yet. She needed to talk to someone, anyone who might have more information. Miss Thompson thought about Mrs. Avery, the local elder. Maybe she could help. She was the one who had warned her about the danger of uncovering the mermaid's secret. Maybe Mrs. Avery knew more than she was letting on. Miss Thompson stood up determined. She would find the answers, no matter how difficult it was. As she walked toward Mrs. Avery's small cottage on the edge of town, Miss Thompson felt a strange chill in the air. The forest around her seemed unusually quiet, and the birds had stopped singing. It was as though everything was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. Miss Thompson quickened her pace, feeling uneasy. Was something watching her? Her eyes scanned the trees, but there was nothing there. "It's just my imagination," she whispered, trying to calm herself. When she arrived at Mrs. Avery's cottage, she knocked on the door, her heart racing. The old woman opened the door with a kind smile, but her eyes seemed worried when she saw the look on Miss Thompson's face. "Come in, dear," Mrs. Avery said, stepping aside. "What's troubling you?" Miss Thompson hesitated, then took a deep breath. "I went to the cave," she said, holding up the glowing stone. "And something strange happened. The cave closed off, and I almost didn't make it out. I need to know what's really going on." Mrs. Avery's face grew serious. She motioned for Miss Thompson to sit down. "I warned you, child," she said softly. "The mermaid's secret is not something that should be uncovered. There are forces at work here that you cannot understand." Miss Thompson shook her head. "But I've seen it with my own eyes. The mermaid, the glowing stone, the voices. It's all real. I have to know what it means." Mrs. Avery looked around, making sure no one was listening. Then, in a hushed voice, she began to speak. "There are ancient legends, Miss Thompson," Mrs. Avery began, "of a mermaid who guards a powerful secret, one that can change everything. The mermaid's true form is not just a creature of the sea. She holds the key to something much greater, something dangerous. For years, the mermaid has kept herself hidden, protecting the world from a dark force that wants to escape. The stone you found is part of an ancient puzzle. If you unlock it, the consequences will be far beyond what you can imagine. Miss Thompson listened intently, her mind racing. But why me? Why was I chosen to find this secret? She asked. Mrs. Avery sighed. I don't know, dear, but I fear you are being pulled into something much bigger than yourself. The mermaid has been guarding this secret for centuries, and now someone or something is trying to take it from her. Miss Thompson shivered. Who would want to steal a secret from the mermaid? And what could be so dangerous about it? Mrs. Avery's face grew pale. That is something you must find out on your own if you dare. Just as Miss Thompson opened her mouth to ask more questions, a loud crash echoed from outside. Mrs. Avery's eyes widened. They're here, she whispered. They found you. Miss Thompson stood up, heart racing. Who? She asked, confused. Mrs. Avery grabbed her arm, pulling her toward the door. Come with me now, she said urgently. There's no time to explain. We need to get to the water, and quickly. Miss Thompson followed Mrs. Avery out of the cottage and into the darkening woods. The air was thick with tension, and every shadow seemed to move. The sounds of footsteps behind them grew louder, and Miss Thompson could feel her pulse racing. Who was chasing them? What did they want? Mrs. Avery led her to a small, hidden dock by the water's edge. We must get to the boat, Mrs. Avery said. It's the only way to escape. They jumped into the small boat, and Mrs. Avery began to row, pushing them out into the lake. As they sailed deeper into the water, Miss Thompson looked over her shoulder. The shadows from the forest were getting closer, and she could hear strange whispers in the air. Something was following them. The glowing stone in her hand pulsed with energy, as if it was reacting to the danger. Miss Thompson's mind raced. What was happening? Who was chasing them? And what did it have to do with the mermaid's secret? The answers were getting closer, but so was the danger. Would they make it in time to uncover the truth? And with that, this part of the journey comes to a breathtaking close. But this is not the end. Far from it. The next part will take you even deeper into a world of adventure, mystery, and shocking twists you never saw coming. What new challenges await? What secrets remain untold? You won't want to miss what happens next. Stay tuned for the next thrilling chapter. It's bigger, bolder, and more suspenseful than ever. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to keep the legend alive. See you in the next adventure. Stay tuned.